Hi, and welcome to a Sense of Wellness podcast, inspiring and empowering a healthier you. I'm your host, Susan Greeley, and I'll be diving deeper into the 4 pillars of wellness: sleep, exercise, nutrition, and stress management. Today, I'm speaking about a very important topic in nutrition, which is diet and cancer prevention. Every October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and this October, I'm happy to share this conversation with fellow registered dietitian nutritionist, Rachel Beller. Rachel offers private nutrition counseling and online classes, and I'm going to call her out as a celebrity weight management and cancer prevention expert. Rachel is the nutrition and media expert for Good Morning America and CNN. She is spokesperson for the American Cancer Society, and she is 3-time best-selling author. She does have her latest book coming out in October, and it's called Spice Rack, a spicy action plan with recipes to reduce breast cancer risk and manage your weight. So based on many years of experience at leading research hospitals, Rachel also created her signature program called the Beller Nutrition Masterclass. That's a simple action plan for cancer risk reduction that helps people manage weight using the Beller method. So I'm thrilled to have Rachel with me today. Rachel, thanks so much for being here.
Such a pleasure to be here with you, a fellow dietitian. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to share more about my latest project, which is Spice Rack, and what it has to offer, because I really feel like this is such a passion project for me and different from my other books that I've written. It's different because this one truly addresses the patient population that I work with most, which is women who are either at high risk for breast cancer, have been touched by breast cancer somehow through a relative or a friend, or are thrivers who have gone through treatment and are seeking a simple action plan to help empower them with direction and specificity as far as their wellness and with their nutrition.
This is an area that you and I are both extremely passionate about. And I know you've poured your heart and soul into this topic, into the research for many, many years. And I want listeners to know that you truly have dedicated your career to this area specifically. So here we are in 2023. Isn't that crazy? October of 2023, another Breast Cancer Awareness Month. What is your focus this year, Rachel, when it comes to lifestyle strategies for reducing breast cancer risk? What comes to mind as the latest and greatest?
So in my book, in Spice Rack, I lay out, it's kind of like 2 books in one. I have the first 10 chapters are Rachel's 10 nutrition commandments for optimal weight management and breast health. So it took 10 chapters to really explain a lot of that, but I can highlight just a few, like maybe even 3. So one chapter is dedicated to fiber. And, look, we all know and our patients know that fiber is important. But what's interesting is that only 3% of Americans are meeting their fiber goal. We're really obsessed with protein. We're getting way more than we probably need. But fiber, most people fall short. And when it comes to breast health, looking at the evidence that's out there, it really pointed me in the direction to guide my patients and my masterclass members and my readers to surpass 20 grams, to really go for that 35-gram goal and to get there with a phased approach, because we all have different tolerances when it comes to fiber. But one thing that I do emphasize in the book is also the concept of fiber diversification. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to have a target number that you're aiming for. You're gradually getting there. And I do have within my method ways to do that, but then also start to diversify. There are different types of fibers. There's insoluble, soluble. Within that, there's the special prebiotic fibers. There's beta glucans, which support our immune system. And if I were to give, there's so much to talk about, but if I were to give one practical tip, because I love keeping things as practical as possible, one starter would be perhaps utilizing fiber boosters like chia seeds. It could be whole chia, it could be chia gel, it could be ground chia, flax seeds that are ground and sealed properly, and perhaps sprouted. Basil seeds. I love using basil seeds for a fiber booster. Whole hemp seeds versus the heart are great as a fiber booster. Whole hemp ground. And I can go on. But you choose one or two and you rotate them and you add a tablespoon into your morning routine and you see yourself not only getting closer to that daily goal, which isn't easy to get to unless you have a strategy, but it's easy. And you just start with a couple and just after a few months, integrate another one or two and kind of build from there. So my message is a phased approach is important.
That's the way to go about it. We both preach that, and phytonutrients, the power of plants, the fiber. That was a really great intro. That was a lot all in that one message. I have to admit, with basil seeds, I honestly, Rachel, and I cook a lot and I preach all of this as well. I have never used basil seeds. So
they're so fun.
Yeah. And these are things that are readily available to all of us now. It's just the knowing and having the strategy and the tips on how to incorporate them into your daily diet. And I think that's where most people struggle is how do I actually get those in daily?
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing up that point because as much as we love social media, we love getting tips. What I find, especially in this space, breast cancer nutrition, because I think part of the reason I fell in love with this population and really fell in love with empowering women when it comes to breast cancer nutrition is because I find that people are very confused. You can get a lot of different information from your neighbor, from your doctor, from a TV segment, from all over the place. And then with social media, you're getting little bits of information and you write them down or you just take note of them or you take a screenshot of it. And it's all great because it's encouraging, and it's empowering us, right? And that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. But what I find is that what people truly need and want is a method. They want a strategy because what that does is it takes all that noise and that chaos and feeling overwhelmed with information. It's information overload. Mm-hmm. So here you should add this to your diet or you should take that supplement. But how do you really put it together into something that works for you, that you can say to yourself, this is sustainable. I feel like I'm being proactive. I feel like I have an evidence-based game plan. And I feel organized. I have clarity and confidence. And I have structurally built a strong house, so to speak, that I can live in and it functions. And you know what? Now when I hear information about a supplement or product, it's an accessory I'm bringing into a house. And it doesn't overwhelm you to bring in a vase or maybe a new painting to put in a wall in an existing house that's structurally built well and functions well for you. And I think with nutrition, it's important to approach it with that similar mindset because it creates peacefulness. You have confidence. You feel empowered with what you're doing. You know you're doing your best. You know there's progress without perfection, and it's okay. It's great. So that's one of the things that I'm really passionate about is giving busy women a game plan that will empower them and offer them some peacefulness with this.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's about that base diet. Those daily habits really do matter most, Rachel. And this is you and I do want to mention this. We're busy moms with 4 kids. We got a lot going on in our lives. And we have been touched by cancer in our families, both of us. So when we say we're passionate about this, we really are, and we make it doable for people. So that said, Spice Rack is really so beautifully done. It's excellent in every way, shape, and form. And it will give readers that toolbox, the strategies, all of that. So I'm going to point out a few things. And I know we could definitely talk for hours about each of these, but I'm going to break it down to some certain areas that people are really confused by. So and then we'll go back to the spices because that's what it's about. But let's start with the biggie. Why are people so afraid of soy? And why do we need to finally break through that fear factor and explain to them, please, why they need to embrace soy?
So soy is something that people have been afraid of throughout my entire career.
Same.
For years, 15 years, 20 years. It's one topic that keeps resurfacing. And the reason is because, when women are diagnosed with breast cancer, they think, oh my gosh, it has estrogen. And so I need to decrease my estrogen intake. But what we've seen through the years and through the research, and I think one of the biggest mistakes is that when soy became popular at one point, the active compounds, the genistein, diazide, all those isoflavones were extracted and put into protein powders, or maybe frozen, companies are making frozen foods would add some of these concentrates to make the protein count higher. And maybe it would help with hot flashes. It was just something that was changed from what we knew, which is, traditional Japanese diet included whole soy. So whole soy and these phytoestrogens are actually protective. They've been shown to help reduce the risk of breast cancer, reduce recurrence. All the data is supportive that it's a protective food. These plant-based estrogens act as a decoy on the cellular level, and they actually protect us from what normal circulating estrogen, its activity would be like. If there was something going on, it would promote tumor growth. But phytoestrogens have an inhibitory effect. They actually protect us. It's a little complex because they attach to a different, to a beta receptor versus an alpha, but I'll spare you those details. But really, it is something to embrace. And when we think about reducing our estrogenic load, there are other things to think about when it comes to that.
Right. You do spell that out in the book, back to the fiber. So it's all tied together. And I do encourage listeners to become readers and read through it. It's really clearly outlined in this book why whole soy foods are so important for breast cancer prevention in particular and other areas. And the phytoestrogens are not compounds to fear. Quite the opposite, both in a recurrence situation too. So yes, that is also listed in your book, or, you explain that in the book as well. We won't spend so much time, but I do want listeners to know that for prevention in younger women, premenopausal women, but also even in women who have already had breast cancer, it's protective against recurrence. Really important message.
It is. It's, I consider it a premium protein.
Yes. Okay. So that's a good segue into proteins, because that is a really key area of everyone's diet now. As you mentioned in the intro, that people eat too much protein in many ways. Some overdo protein, some still eat too little protein. But talk about proteins for us, please, Rachel. What is your approach to plant-based proteins versus animal?
So in Spice Rack, I do organize protein in a simple way so that it's easy to select the types of proteins that you want. When I work with a patient or a masterclass participant, my goal isn't to convert them into being vegan right off the bat. Some people come to me with a vegan diet and they have a horrific diet. It's not what it's about. But it's nice to have the flexibility to be more inclusive of plant-based proteins and have easy ways to integrate them into your diet. So in the book, I classify proteins into 3 tiers. I have my premium proteins. Those are going to be your first choice when it comes to breast cancer risk reduction. And those would be the plant-based proteins. So you got beans, legumes, whole soy, like edamame, tempeh. You could use watermelon seeds. You could use pumpkin seeds. There are different plant-based proteins that you can select. And I also advise readers about the portions. How do you know what you're swapping out for that piece of chicken if you wanted to have a plant-based meal? Is it just a sprinkle of garbanzo beans, or is it 3/4 or a cup? And I do provide those guidelines. The reason I consider them premium, just a few of the reasons, is because plant-based proteins are not only good for the environment, They are also rich in phytonutrients. They've got a lot of protective plant chemicals that protect us on the cellular level. They're really high in fiber, most of them, which is so important. So it's such an easy way to climb your way up to that 35 grams that I mentioned. This really helps because other animal sources of protein have zero. So you've got a good amount of fiber. You've got protein. It supports your immune system, your gut microbiome, which contributes to hormonal balance. I could go on and on and on. If I were selling you a car and money was no object and I have every brand available, this would be like that great electric car that has so many protective features that you're going to say, I really want that one. Money's no object. You can pick anything you want. That's the one I would pick first.
And it's got so much in there, and it's the way to make our diets more interesting, get more variety. I think too many people get stuck in their food ruts where they eat the same thing all the time. I do talk about that with many, many clients as well. So this is an area where you're adding protein, you're adding phytonutrients, you're adding fiber, you're adding so many good things all at once. And then the key part that you focus so much on in your book that I really want to talk about too is the power of spicing.
Yes.
This is a gem. This is truly a gem. We don't need our daily diet to be boring. So tell us about power spicing and all of these amazing benefits of spices that I think a lot of people really aren't eating regularly.
So spicing is something that I was fascinated by, so much so that I wrote a best-selling book called Power Spicing. That's my third book that I wrote. And what intrigued me was an article I saw by the American Institute for Cancer Research titled The Spices for Cancer Protection. And I thought, wow, with everything that patients in the oncology space are being sold, supplements and promises and everything, I thought, this is fascinating. Everyone has this in their pantry already. And anybody can do this. And it's affordable. It's just easy to do. It's about having a consistent pattern with spices so you can integrate them in the AM and the PM and day to day, because with nutrition, as you know, it's all about a cumulative effect over time. It's not about incorporating something that's trendy for a couple months. That's not going to make a dent for your health. So I thought this is something simple that anybody can do. And there's real science. There's thousands of studies about the benefits of cinnamon and cumin and pepper and turmeric. And I could go on and on. So I really started to look into this and I thought this is fascinating. So why do I like spicing? To answer your question specifically, is that they're rich in antioxidants, very rich. So you can add a few pinches of a spice blend and you can double, triple the antioxidant value of, let's say, your garbanzo beans or your breakfast or whatever it is. That's fascinating. Little bit goes such a long way. It's packed with anti-inflammatory properties. It has anti-cancer benefits. It supports your gut microbiome. It can help you with weight management. And again, that cumulative effect over time. So then I also started to notice that, wow, there are certain spices that have a synergistic effect. They work together in sync. And that also fascinated me. So we hear a lot about adding black pepper to turmeric to help your body enhance the absorption of curcumin, the active compound in turmeric. But then there are things like cacao. Cacao has quercetin, and that helps your body absorb the curcumin, let's say, in turmeric as well. And there's a synergistic effect between parsley and turmeric as well. Parsley also contains quercetin and epigenin, which is parsley is another herb that's known to be extremely protective when it comes to breast health. And these are things that we don't take advantage of. We don't take note of them. They're like a decoration on top of a meal that makes things look pretty, but I consider them a power up, a way to dramatically level up the anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory properties of your meal. So that, along with one of my patients the gentleman, Matt, who kept coming into my office and asking me, so have you put together that spice line? You talk about spices and how they work together. And you've also told me how to make my own blend. And I don't have time to do that. And I'm never going to do that. Rachel, could you please just put it together? And I said, I'm not a chef. I'm a dietitian, but, because no, I meant put it together, like create a line of spices that makes it easy for us to do this. And it took 3 years to carefully craft it. And then I launched my own, the Beller Nutrition Power Spice line. And we have, as of this December, we're going to have 11 blends. And yeah, it's been so fun to simplify things for people. So in Spice Rack, in the book, every recipe is going to have what I consider a shortcut, because we're all busy. So there are recipes that incorporate the blend, any one of the blend. But since not everybody may be able to purchase my spices, maybe it's not available because there's a shortage, or who knows. I give alternatives. So if you don't have it, use the following substitution. But I do offer the blends, and I did synergistically pair things for that. So
that's what I love about this book. Thank you for pointing all that out too. And there's so much more that's actually here, Rachel, that I'm going to just reiterate some of what you just said, because it's what makes food flavorful. We eat based on flavor.
Yes.
Number one, we eat based on flavor, and it should be fun. And getting people to cook more and prepare their own foods is also really important. So
yes.
A lot of people, like you said, you're not a chef. I'm not a chef. I cook all the time. I do have a cookbook, and I use lots of herbs and spices, and I teach people about it. So I think it's just so important to give them not one recipe when they buy these herbs and spices and then don't know what to do with it after that. It's like in your book, you have so many recipes and also so many combinations that are really exciting. It's like, get adventurous with the palette and with all these spices. So I'm loving looking at it. I think listeners would be so surprised to see the cacao in there many times, and just how helpful black pepper is when you're talking. So it's not only just the flavor, but you're getting so many added benefits health-wise with the enhanced absorption, and then what you call the double dosing.
Yes. I mean, and again, it's fascinating that something so simple can offer so much. I mean, think about, I'm sure you see this in your practice. Patients are investing so much energy, time, and money on different superfood powders and things like that. And of course, I will recommend them, but I want to know that my patient has a game plan. I want to know that they're set up, they have that house built, and spices are part of that foundation. Because we all buy spices, we all have them in our pantries, but now it's about using blends or specific combinations of spices in your AM routine. For dinner, it's something you do want to think about. Do I have my vegetables, my low starch vegetables, or any kind of produce? What kind of protein do I have? Did I integrate healthy fats into my meal? Did I integrate spices and herbs? That is something I want people to ask themselves as an important thing as part of their foundation when it comes to nutrition. And also in restaurants, when the waiter comes around and asks you, would you like some pepper on that soup? Say yes. It helps you with digestion. It really is so good for your gut microbiome. So it promotes some good bacteria in the gut, which in turn support your immune system. And it's just good. I just think that it's important to think about when you look at nutritional interventions as dietitians. One of the key goals is to not have people just eat more vegetables or incorporate more. It's not about an apple a day. It's about changing how people think about what they choose to put in their bodies. When you turn that switch and someone changes how they look at food and how they think about the value and their own self-worth, that's when we know we've got to a good place with a patient. Or like the Beller Nutrition Masterclass participants, Like, that's when I know we're really getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
They want that stuff. They crave it. They enjoy it. They feel empowered by it.
Exactly.
That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, cut you off. I get so excited about it too. You see that in people's eyes, and just when they give you these accounts too, and they'll say, oh, I'm now making this smoothie every day for breakfast, whatever. And I incorporated even, parsley in my smoothie and cinnamon, like strange combinations. I don't know. I just made that up, but it's
sure.
Right. Once you open people's world and eyes and palates to new tastes and flavors, I think that it is life-changing in so many ways. And that's why we're doing this. And I want this to be empowering to people and keeping it simple. So number one is experiment too on your own, but try new things. That's really probably the most important thing for people to do. Again, back to like boring diets. No diet should be, your daily diet should not be boring. I did, of course, want to ask in all of that, how do you apply this in your own home, Rachel? Do you have favorites? Do your kids accept the different tastes? I know my boys all like, different foods, of course. And so how does this work in your home?
Well, it's tricky as dietitians, because if you hover and overwhelm and insist and push, then you'll build in resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to pick and choose how you integrate things into the household and the lifestyle. And what I found that what worked best and what worked with my 4 kids and my husband is having things available and just making things, but not over pitching.
Yeah.
Why it's there. So, for example, my girls specifically, they love roasted cauliflower with my everything savory spice blend. And I whip it up in 2 seconds. And so not only they love the flavor and everything, but because it's so quick and I'm not making such a big deal out of it, they ask for it very casually. Oh, can we have that? Like, it's not like they feel like it's an overwhelming or big task or a big deal to eat it. It just becomes part of the routine. And I think that's what I'm trying to relay, that keeping it casual, not creating a lot of stress over, oh, we should be eating this because this is really, I think as parents, it's important to have a very organic approach with this.
Mm-hmm.
And as dietitians, it would be so easy for us to tout, oh, cauliflower, it's a top tier anti-cancer cruciferous veg. It has fiber. It is so protective. This is good stuff. And you know what? I added the everything savory spice blend and it's so neutral tasting and it just gives a great taste and it has turmeric and black pepper and it's good. And, it will protect you forever. And there's resistance when you overwhelm people and you push it on them. How many patients have you had who don't eat fish or don't want an omega-3 supplement because their mother used to force upon them a teaspoon of cod liver oil? I have a lot of patients tell me that.
Yeah. Yeah. Those things from childhood where they were traumatized. But nobody likes that. It's true. And I just like to set an example for my kids. As I showed you part of what arrived in my farm box today. So I practice what I preach, but I don't preach at them.
Well, that's really what I meant to say, is to keep it low key like that. No, thank you. Because it's important. Like, I actually love integrating plant-based proteins.
Mm-hmm.
But if I make a pot of lentils and talking about how like nonstop pushing it.
Yeah.
It's not,
then they
taste something. Yeah. Yeah. It's like someone taught me once, like, when you're writing some marketing material, whatever, as much as you want to say, oh, this recipe is healthy. I don't know if you've been told this, like, say it's healthy, then they're going to question the taste and the flavor.
Always. Isn't that true?
Very interesting. Very interesting.
It's interesting. And again, because we eat based on taste first. Yes. So once you put in cinnamon and turmeric, my kids, by the way, have no idea that I do put turmeric and cinnamon into my turkey chili.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And the cumin and a whole lot of other things. Yes. So it's fun. And slowly getting others to cook, including within my family and friends and all of that. So other topics too. This is so fun, Rachel. I really obviously love talking food and making it doable for people. Back to the bigger topics, broader topics of diet. We've got carbs, fats, proteins, fiber. Sugar is a biggie that comes up with cancer, and having children, their diets made me think of that as well.
Yes.
So is sugar evil? Does it fuel cancer? What's the message there?
It's a little complex. I do have to say that, but it doesn't cause cancer like a lot of people think it does. I think if I were to sum it up, with sugar, it's a balancing. It's understanding how to balance your blood sugars, how to put foods together for that synergistic effect to help balance your blood sugars. That's really, really important to think about. So, for example, some of my patients will fear eating apples. They say, no, that has sugar. So I'm not going to eat fruit. I'm not going to eat apples. I'm not going to eat a banana, whether it's greenish or ripe or whatever it is. They're not going to eat fruits because they fear sugar. So I think the educational component is important. Every cell in your body needs sugar to survive and thrive. Normal, healthy cell, cancer, every cell needs sugar. It's how you introduce sugar into the body. So if you're eating fruit, perhaps you pair it with a handful of baruca nuts, which are fun and tasty and delicious. That will help balance your blood sugars because you've got the natural sugars, you've got fiber, protein, fat. That synergistic effect works. So that's balance. And that's important. Or adding a fiber booster to your steel cut oats. That also helps you. Another thing that people need to think about is a variety of different sources of sugar. So refined carbohydrates would be a source of a simple type of sugar source. So teaching patients how to select something like bread is such a fun experience for me as well. I talk about like doing the squeeze test. So if your bread resists squishing and you can visibly see intact whole grains versus whole grains that are pulverized into a flour, that will have a different impact on your blood sugar. So I encourage my patients to purchase flourless bread that literally are just intact whole grains, legumes that are glued together, shaped into a slice of bread, and is better and supports blood sugar modulation. So all these little things, but fearing sugar, especially natural sugars, is something that is important to address because patients come with that fear.
Mm-hmm. Such a big area that I hear this all the time too, that confusion between types of sugar and just using this collective, this all-encompassing word sugar. And that's where, we need to keep educating people. You have your blood sugar. All food breaks down into glucose in the blood, which we call sugar. And, simple carbs, refined carbs, complex carbs, the fiber we're talking about. So thank you. And it's just, we keep talking about it. And it comes back to the same point, is that eat whole foods, eat real whole foods, and do eat as little of the processed and ultra processed and highly refined sugars as possible. And you list them in your book. I talk, about these as well, that there's so many names for different types of sugar in packaged foods, but the more you know what ingredients in your foods and you truly eliminate most of those packaged foods, then you are not getting too much of it. But one thing since we're talking cancer, I do tell people all the time, as much as you can, do not consume high fructose corn syrup. Out of all of the sugars out there, that's the one area where I don't back down and I say that it has no place in our diets, period. Of course, it's hard to 100% avoid. But fruit sugar, eat more fruits and vegetables. Speaking of which, there is the recommendation to get 7 to 9 servings a day. That overwhelms people. But I want to hear from you too. How do you get people to understand that fruits and vegetables are important? Not just the vegetables, but the fruits, back to the sugar point. And how much do we need on a daily basis?
So the way I like to approach it, it comes back to what I mentioned in the book, which is I refer to it as the Beller method. And why do I refer to that? Because over the years, working both in the research setting with research participants and in a private practice, in a clinical setting, what I've learned is that people, besides the emotional component and cravings and hormones and, there's a lot more to it when it comes to nutritional therapy. But one common theme is that people really want a method in place.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know how to run their day efficiently with their food. So I like to be specific with that. And I set them up with a game plan before noon. And that will encompass what I call a fiber ensured breakfast strategy. And it does include fruit in there, and it does include different components. And then lunch, I give them a method also, a meal building strategy. And dinner, I do the same, and snacks. My point in sharing that, it would take a while to explain the entire method, but the point is that's how I get them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I get them to do it, because when they follow the meal building concept, they are checking off those boxes. They have a lot of produce. They have a protein. They have their fats. They have flexibility within that scope, but then they don't have to worry about it. But one thing I do want to say is they don't need to follow it every single day and be so rigid and meticulous. There always needs to be room for extra delicious foods. There always needs to be room for the flexibility when you're eating out, when you're on vacation. So as much as I like to give a strategy, it doesn't need to be so rigid. People have a structural component that will help them, and they can refine it as they need when it comes to maybe they need to lose excess body fat. And then they need to work on being a little bit more refined with their game plan if they want to do it naturally without medication. So it gives you that flexibility. But to answer your question, that's how I personally do it, and encourage them to be more inclusive of produce in a way where they can know that, most of the time I'm meeting my goals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to eat a variety. You do want to include fruits. I'm sure you can relate to the banana fear factor. People just are like, how many times I'll get a message from a patient like, oh, can you review this protein bar? And it's processed. It's coming from a health food store. It is super processed, but I don't eat bananas.
Right.
I won't eat a banana. That has too much sugar.
Right.
Come on, give me a break. If you want to eat a greenish banana, yes, it has more resistant starch. I understand, but putting it in perspective is very important.
We have to keep putting it in perspective. And that brings me to the next very important topic where I say, show me one person who's gotten fat on bananas. It doesn't exist. It really doesn't exist. However, body weight is important, particularly when it comes to breast cancer prevention. And so this is, I'd say, our last area that I really wanted to cover with you, Rachel. How important is body weight specifically with breast cancer prevention and even recurrence as well? And I want to talk about premenopausal versus postmenopausal. If you can just give us the overview and why it is important.
So having excess body fat does increase the risk for breast cancer and also recurrence, because fat cells are the, so to speak, factories of where estrogen gets produced. The larger the factory, the more production. And so we really want to reduce that. But it's important also to just think also about body fat. Some people are exercising and increasing their muscle, and I don't want to ignore that. I don't want to dismiss that. That's very important. The risk has been shown to be more increased in postmenopausal versus premenopausal. However, I do stress managing one's weight in all phases of life, because if you reach that postmenopausal stage and you say, oh, okay, now I need to lose weight or think about it in a more serious way, it's hard to do that. These are habits, it takes years. I work with my patients for a long time working on this. Nutritional therapy isn't a one and done. It's not about a couple sessions. It's like seeing a therapist. If you're going to see them for 1 or 2 visits, probably not going to make that big of a difference. So same with dietitians. It takes a long time. And I think integrating these strategies and the education and tending to your personal weight management without extremism, just doing it in a balanced, healthy way would be important at any stage of life. But there is a correlation, an undeniable link between having too much excess body fat and breast cancer risk and survivorship. So that's why I incorporate the strategy, into the book, because I can't ignore it. It needs to be there. It needs to be there.
It does need to be there. And we don't want to harp on it too much and depress people with the alcohol message either. So I'm not going there.
Yeah.
But it's important to know the risks. And again, we're about empowering people, empowering listeners, empowering all women and men, I will say. Yes. We're all touched by breast cancer, honestly. Yes. And so it's making small changes that can, even if you lower your body fat by a very small amount, that has a positive impact, right? So every bit of reduction is protective, but you outlined your entire Beller method. Okay. So people still have to go to the book or go to the method. And that's what you and I teach people, is how to establish that base diet, that framework to build off of every single day. And some days are better or easier than others. And, we have to live life and have, special occasions and vacations. That's not what we're talking about. It's establishing that healthy base diet. And the message that I give most people is adding more of the good stuff, which is exactly what your book is about. And not even just more of the good stuff, but good stuff you didn't even know existed, such as all the spices and those nuts that you mentioned that I had never even heard of myself, or basil seeds, trying new things too, and seeing it all in a very positive way. Because what I like to tell people too is sometimes that weight loss is a side effect of simply improving your diet in a fun, delicious way, honestly.
Yes, it's that knowledge. Knowledge is power, and not being perfect. It's what you do most of the time, not sometimes, that makes a difference when it comes to your long-term health. I really try to convey that to my, the masterclass participants, that really it's that most of the time, and having that ability to share openly what it is that you're eating and seeking support with that is very important. Feeling comfortable. Not feeling judged, feeling supported.
Probably the most important part, honestly. Yeah. Health and diet coaching. Absolutely. And starting young. So that's the one message I want to mention as well with breast cancer prevention is, even if you yourself are postmenopausal, perhaps you have a daughter or granddaughter, the younger that women, young girls, can get on board with the health of their diet, the better, as far as protection over a lifetime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting because my patient population we've got adult women, but then I have college students. Why is that? Because once women, I'm working with a patient or with masterclass participants or just individual readers, they understand, they're empowered, they understand, and they've shifted their mindset. They want that for their daughter or granddaughter. And so that's where that comes in. And I love working with all. It's women, men, all age groups, but it's interesting. Some physicians asked me yesterday, patient population. And I said, it's very interesting. I have a lot of college students.
Yay. That's excellent. I love hearing that. Oh, it's so important. So I can't reiterate all of these messages enough, and having the opportunity to get this out there makes me very grateful. So that takes me to my final question, Rachel. What is one thing you are grateful for today?
I am grateful. What comes to mind is health, family, and the ability to contribute to the community at large. I am so grateful that I am able to give back. I don't know that I mentioned to you, I sit on multiple boards, and I really believe in giving back to the community. And I do that with speaking, with education, And that is something I'm very grateful that I'm able to incorporate that into Beller Nutrition as a whole, because it's such a big part of me.
Speaks volumes for what you do and how passionate you are about it. Thank you, Rachel. This has been so wonderful having you. And I'm really grateful to be a dietitian as you are and share this with people and continue to do this work that we do to help truly improve people's lives.
It's such a pleasure to be here. And if anybody wants information about the book or anything like that, it's at bellernutrition.com or at Beller Nutrition.
Yes, reach out to Rachel there. And that was my final question. Where can listeners find you, Rachel? And I encourage everybody, and I sincerely mean this, find Spice Rack new on the shelves or Amazon, wherever you purchase books. It's coming out in October and it's a gem, honestly. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for taking time to join me and listen to this episode. You can find more information and subscribe to the Sense of Wellness podcast on our website at ccphd.net/sens. This show is brought to you by Castle Connolly Private Health Partners, a concierge medicine organization that partners with and supports exceptional physicians to deliver an unrivaled experience of comprehensive, collaborative, and attentive care for a preventative approach on health and optimal well-being for members. Be sure to listen in next time to the Sense of Wellness podcast, and remember, simple daily habits matter most.